Making it last is all I care to do. You loving me, I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life. We won't live in the past.
Time for another conversation. Welcome to Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, with other people. I'm Noreen Daly, and with me this time around is a fellow podcaster. That bit I'm loving. Not that I don't like your other, title, but I love the fact that you're a podcaster as well. And the name of your podcast is called The Connector, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that before I say what your other label is.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that podcast.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really delighted to be a guest here. And I am one half of The Connectors. We are based in Canada, and I'm in Montreal in Quebec. And my co-host is Jo Showalter, and she's in London, Ontario. And we got together over a year ago because we noticed that during the pandemic and post-pandemic, there was a lot of social isolation, a lot of loneliness, a lot of changes to people's social circumstances throughout the pandemic and after that. And we wanted to find a way to counter that. So by starting a podcast and having conversations with people who were working on their own or working in small groups, we've started seeing patterns and links that people can make use of if they want to develop and deepen their connections, both personally and in work. And so we're taking all of these guests and we're publishing this so people can hear all of their insights and their advice and their stories. And then Jo and I are also working in the background, writing out a connection mindset and creating a whole bunch of different tools and tips using research and data, which I'll be very happy to talk about.
Love it, love it. And you're also a business consultant. Tell us a little bit about that before we get into the conversation.
Yeah, totally. So I started out being a music teacher. And then when I moved to Canada, my qualifications weren't accepted in the province that I was in. So I had to jump around, and I did marketing for 10 years. And then I studied again during the pandemic. And now I work as a business consultant focusing on nonprofits and non-governmental organizations and charities. So I work a lot in the arts and culture sectors. And I work with BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, People of Color groups, specifically against police violence and police discrimination.
So now that we know a little bit about Quinten, now what we're going to be dissecting, so to speak, is how can connection be viewed as a process? Yes.
It's such an important question. When you think of a person who is in an isolated situation, or they've got anxiety and they're not able to reach out and connect with people around them. So first of all, I think that it's important to recognize that we're all social creatures. We all want to reach out. We're not meant to be in isolation. Even if I work at home remotely in my office, I've still got to get out and see people. I've still got to have conversations and be in community. So we've taken a lot of research that's come from the US Surgeon General. His name's Dr. Vivek Murthy, and he came out with an 80-page report that was all about social isolation and social anxiety post-pandemic. And he offers 6 different pillars as solutions for social anxiety, social isolation. And the opposite of this is to increase connection and increase community. So we've been looking at his research, and we've been thinking about how can we turn these into stages that are not nationwide or citywide, but we can do ourselves. We can manage ourselves. So the first thing that we've noticed is you've got to recognize that there is isolation happening. There are people that are in this situation. And just, if it's for yourself, be self-aware that you're isolating yourself, just that it's happening. Or if you see it in other people, just recognize that they're in a situation where they're removing themselves in some way. And then you got to start an outreach, but not in a usual, hey, come, let's go have a coffee. You got to just make little suggestions and show them with little nudges that there are ways to connect, ways to get opportunities, even just going for a walk and taking a coffee with a friend. Or this afternoon, I've got a friend coming around and we're playing some music. He's taking a burnout leave from his job and he's very much isolating himself. But if we can just hang out for a couple of hours and play some music and have a chat, then I know that his evening's going to be better. Before
you go to the next one, though, there are persons who will say, but I'm just an introvert and I just like being alone. How then do you say to them, no, you're actually isolating yourself? How do you make that distinction?
I think that comes from knowing the person well. Okay. It comes in the personal connection that you've got with them. I have friends who say to, because I'm an introvert, and I have friends who say to me, hey, Quinten, I haven't seen you in a month. Like, this isn't okay. Come on, let's go watch a movie or something. So my friends nudge me, and I, in turn, I recognize some friends who are introverts as well, and I nudge them. So, but I think that comes to my next point, which is quality over quantity. And it's recognizing that we don't have to have 150 friends. We don't have to have 300 acquaintances and 5,000 people on our Facebook or Instagram, TikTok. The smaller the group of friends, the more quality you're going to have in the relationships between them. So I think that also lends to what we said before. I'll go on and add another point. So I think that a fifth point that we've noticed is cultivating empathy and recognizing that even though I'm not in that person's situation right now, I can feel the same things that this person is feeling because I have been in that situation before. So just by sitting with them in their emotions and in their situation that they are in, they get this feeling that there's a parallel happening. There's someone aligning themselves with them. Even if you're not in that situation, you're just sitting there and sharing that space. And that can be very comforting and accepting and nurturing for your friend or the person that you're trying to connect with. Hi, my name is Quinten Sheriff, and you're watching the Making It Last podcast with Noreen Daly. And I know you're enjoying this conversation, but we're going to take a break now to hear a word from our partners.
Making it last is all I care to do. You loving me, I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life. We won't live in the past. We're making it last. Mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, friends forever.
You can't live your best life without a healthy immune system. Boost your immune system the delicious way with Zappy's organic juices and punches. Made from local produce with zero added sugar, our juices cleanse and revitalize your body as they boost your natural immunity. Try our delicious flavors: Beat It, Berry Bomb, Get Fresh, Ton Up, and Island Splash. Find us on Instagram at Zappy's Organics, or call or send a WhatsApp message at 1-876-779-8910 to order today. That's 1-876-779-8910. Zappy's Organic Juices and Punches. Live your best life today.
Is that true? What the key up with the woman is that?
I recently have been coached by the great Miss Noreen Daly. I own a video company. I'm also an online influencer. So I do a lot of speaking virtually and in person. She was able to point out some of my weaknesses that I didn't yet notice. And I 100% recommend Miss Noreen Daly as your coach.
Noreen Daly, redefining the way you communicate.
Making it last is all I care to do. You loving me, I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life. We won't live in the past. We're making it last. Mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, friends forever.
Welcome back. I'm Quinten Sheriff, and we're talking about the stages of connection. Let's continue the conversation.
The whole idea of quality over quantity. And you mentioned the fact that how everybody gets caught up into having thousands of persons on their different, platforms. For somebody who, well, let me not say especially young people, because I think even some of us who are older sometimes get caught up into that madness as well. How do we run away, for want of a better word, from that madness, or try not to feed into that, to say, I need to have this whole bunch of people looking at what I'm doing, when sometimes, it's really just a facade, really, because at the end of the day, half of the people who you're friends with on Facebook or who are following you, you probably don't even have a conversation with them if they pass you on the street.
Absolutely. That's so true. And I think that talks a bit about the marketing network that's around us.
Okay.
That it's there to attract us all day long on every single device that we have and on every single media that we look at. There's adverts, there's publicity, there's like me, follow, subscribe. And I think if we recognize that the marketing network is set up for addiction and to bring you back for superficial connection, that once you realize that, it's the awareness is 50%. It's saying, okay, so there's this system that's out there listening and watching and trying to get me to buy the latest book or iPhone or whatever it is, but it's just algorithms. It's the machine. It's not people reaching out to me physically saying, hey, Quinten, I really liked what you did there. It's just an algorithm that sees that 17 people clicked at the same time saying they liked it. So this must be a high effort post. It is difficult, especially for younger people, because the software is made to pull people in and open up their phone again and again and again. But hopefully, by realizing that the close connections that you have face-to-face with your community, with your friends at school, if you're still at school or uni or work, that these ultimately feed you more than some Instagram likes and random comments.
All right, so we had backtracked, so you can move on now to the next stage.
Yeah, so the next stage is moving from ourselves and what we do ourselves, and then starting to integrate this and share this with the community. So moving beyond the individual connections, such as Joe and myself as the co-hosts of the podcast, and reaching out and getting all these guests on the show and interviewing all these people. We've now had 40 amazing guests on the show, and
Nice.
all of these people are reaching out into their communities, and they're getting us new guests to join on the show, or they're saying, hey, I was on this podcast, let me know what you think about it. I think this is an amazing product. It shares a lot of insights, a lot of advice. And so just moving out and sharing the outreach in a free way. Like we're not asking anyone to join a subscription or pay for a program or buy a book. We want to share. We want to just openly outreach, and the energy that's coming back is showing us that this is the right thing to do right now for us, which is amazing.
Yes. And it completely aligns with what I'm doing, because one of the reasons I decided to do this is that I just don't think we pay as much attention as we should to our relationships. So it's a matter of trying to just, for want of a better word, I guess, raise the consciousness and just, give people advice, so to speak. So that is why I'm always deliberate. I don't just get experts, so to speak, but just people sharing from their personal experiences. Because at the end of the day, I really want people to be able to say, hey, that's something that I probably want to try in my relationships. I just try to have better relationships.
Yeah. Totally. And your podcast hits it on the nail on the head. And I totally respect that. Like, you came back to me with several emails and you were like, okay, I can see you know what you're talking about, but I need you to be more definite about your ideas about what you want to talk. And I thought, yes, that's awesome. I'm going to refine my ideas for Noreen, and we're going to have an even better conversation for her and her community and her listeners.
Right. So any other stages, or you've basically covered them all now?
Well, finally, it's just finding a way to sustain it. And so we've got this connection that's coming from inside ourselves. We're reaching out to others. We're helping people who are seeing isolation. And then how can we make this a sustainable practice and make sure that we've got these social connections in our daily routines or our weekly routines so that we don't lapse back into an isolating or disconnected space. So that's basically it.
If you had to pick one stage that you think is the most important, is more than likely easier said than done, which stage would that be?
That's a tough question. I think I would talk about integrating into communities now, because I feel like there is a lot of help out there. There are a lot of resources and books and things to help people connect with themselves and work on their mindsets, or work on the social, the personal aspects of isolation. But this idea of community connection, especially in North America, is very weak. We're very independent. We're very individualistic here. It's very much, one person for themselves. But the social fabric and community fabric is disconnecting and unraveling because we keep pushing this individualistic character so strongly. So that's the one I would go for.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Quinten.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been a real pleasure.
This was Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, with other people. I'm Noreen Daly. Until next time.
You loving me, I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life.